There is one possibility that feels even more shocking than a sudden death or an exposed secret, and that is the idea that the devastating twist in part two could come from a choice, not an accident, not fate, not illness, a decision made willingly, knowing it will hurt. Bridgerton has always explored duty versus desire. Characters are constantly forced to choose between what they want and what society expects from them. In season 4, that conflict feels stronger than ever. We have seen conversations about responsibility, about protecting family honor, about sacrifice. These themes have been repeated too often to ignore. When a show keeps returning to the idea of sacrifice, it usually means someone is going to make one. Think carefully about the emotional tone of part 1. Several characters expressed fear that their happiness might not last. Others questioned whether they deserved the life they were building. Those doubts did not fully resolve. They were left hanging, almost as if they were waiting for a trigger. What if that trigger is a moment where someone believes they must step aside for the greater good? Imagine a public event, possibly a wedding or engagement announcement. Everything is prepared, the family is gathered, the ton is watching, and at the final moment, someone walks away. Not because they stopped loving the other person, but because they believe staying would cause harm. That kind of scene would be both joyful and heartbreaking at the same time. Joyful because it begins as a celebration, heartbreaking because it ends in silence. There is also the possibility that a character discovers a truth that changes their perspective completely. A hidden letter, a long-kept secret, a betrayal from someone they trusted. If that revelation happens right before a life-changing commitment, it would force an impossible decision. And Bridgerton loves impossible decisions. Another detail that should not be overlooked is how isolated certain characters have felt emotionally. Even when surrounded by family, there have been moments of quiet doubt. The camera lingers, the music softens, the character looks uncertain. These small moments suggest internal conflict building beneath the surface. Internal conflict often leads to drastic action. If someone believes they are protecting the people they love by making a painful choice, they might accept being misunderstood. They might accept being hated. They might accept walking away alone. And that would be devastating. Because the audience would know the truth, but the characters on screen might not. There is also a darker theory gaining attention. What if the twist involves a scandal so severe that it forces a separation? If a secret becomes public at the worst possible moment, the pressure of society could push two people apart even if they desperately want to stay together. Reputation in this world is everything. One accusation can destroy a future overnight. And if that accusation comes from within the family, the consequences would be even more painful. Consider how the trailer shows quick flashes of tense expressions between siblings. That could simply be editing, but it could also hint at disagreement. What if one Bridgerton believes a match is dangerous? What if they intervene at the worst possible time? The most heartbreaking conflicts are not between enemies. They are between people who love each other. If part 2 delivers a moment where loyalty to family clashes with loyalty to love, the fallout would affect everyone. Relationships would fracture, trust would weaken, and the emotional damage would not disappear in a single episode. There is also the question of timing. A devastating twist late in the season would leave the story unresolved, pushing emotional consequences into season 5. That would align perfectly with the idea that this twist is meant to launch the next chapter, which means this moment will not just shock us, it will redefine the direction of the entire series. And if the devastation truly comes from a conscious choice rather than tragedy, it might hurt even more because it means it could have been avoided. It means someone believed there was no other way. So as we move closer to part 2, one question becomes impossible to ignore. When the celebration begins and the music swells, will we witness a promise fulfilled or a love story shattered by a single irreversible decision?
There is something even more unsettling than the visuals in the trailer, and that is the language being used around part 2. In interviews and promotional conversations, the cast and creative team have been unusually careful with their words. They are not simply describing the upcoming episodes as romantic or dramatic. Instead, they keep using words like intense, painful, shocking, and transformative. These are not light descriptions. These are warning signs. When actors begin telling fans to prepare themselves, that is never random. It suggests that what is coming will divide opinions and spark emotional reactions. Bridgerton has always delivered passion and heartbreak, but rarely has it been framed as something audiences need to brace for. That subtle shift in tone matters. Even more telling is the repeated emphasis on unpredictability. Several interviews have hinted that Part 2 will not follow the path viewers are expecting. Now, that statement alone is powerful, because right now, most of the audience believes they understand the structure. They believe they know which couple is safe. They believe they know which story is central. And when a show hints that expectations will be overturned, it usually means one of those assumptions is wrong. The writing in Part 1 also quietly planted emotional seeds that did not fully bloom yet. There were conversations about loyalty, about secrets, about things left unsaid. One character hesitated before revealing something important. Another chose silence instead of honesty. At the time, these moments felt minor, but in hindsight, they may have been the foundation for something much larger. Secrets in Bridgerton never stay buried. If there is a devastating twist coming, it could be tied to a truth that has been hidden for too long. A revelation during a public event would explain the chaos hinted at in the trailer. Imagine a carefully planned evening unraveling because of a single confession. Imagine the silence that would follow. And then there is the matter of emotional contrast. One of the most striking comments from behind the scenes described a moment as both joyful and heartbreaking at the same time. That combination is rare. It suggests that something beautiful and something devastating happen in the same scene. Perhaps a proposal interrupted, perhaps a wedding overshadowed, perhaps a declaration of love followed by a confession that changes everything. Bridgerton thrives on emotional duality. It builds you up before pulling the ground from under you. Another detail worth examining is how the music has been teased. This series is known for its orchestral covers that turn modern songs into romantic ballads. But what if the chosen piece for the most important scene in Part 2 is not romantic at all? What if it carries a darker tone? Music is often the emotional guide for the audience. If it shifts, the story shifts with it. There is also a growing theory that the twist may not affect just one couple, but multiple members of the Bridgerton family at once. The trailer shows quick glimpses of different characters reacting with concern. That suggests a shared event, something big enough to ripple through the entire household. And when the entire family is affected, the consequences are never small. Think about how previous seasons handled major turning points. The impact always extended beyond the main couple. Reputation, loyalty, trust, and social standing were always at stake. If Part 2 truly contains a devastating twist, it could threaten the family's position in society. A scandal could undo years of carefully maintained respect. What if the twist is not about love failing, but about the family being exposed? There have been whispers that a past secret may resurface. A decision made seasons ago could return with consequences. Bridgerton is known for planting long-term threads that pay off later. If that is the case here, the devastation might feel shocking, but it would not be random. It would be the result of choices made long before. And that makes it even more powerful. Because when consequences finally arrive, they feel earned, they feel inevitable, they feel like fate catching up. As viewers, we often focus on the visible romance, but Bridgerton has always been just as much about reputation and power. If someone's standing in society is destroyed publicly, the emotional fallout could be worse than loss itself. The shame, the whispers, the isolation. And if the twist happens in front of the entire ton, there will be no hiding from it. So now the tension grows even stronger. The interviews are warning us. The trailer is hinting at chaos. The dialogue is foreshadowing loss or revelation. The emotional tone has shifted from hopeful to uncertain. All of these signs are pointing toward a single explosive moment that will change everything we think we know about Season 4. But the most unsettling part is this. What if the devastating twist is not something that happens to the Bridgertons, but something caused by one of them?
A single scene in the Part 2 trailer has completely changed everything we thought we knew about Bridgerton Season 4. What looked like a joyful continuation of romance and celebration is now hiding something far darker beneath the surface. One quiet moment, one expression, and one